Hospital Board. I've done consulting work with Valley County Health System when Phil Lowe was here. I did some training on customer service, and in talking with him, became familiar with some of the issues there. I think some of those have continued to be issues, so I'm somewhat familiar with certain things. I have experience serving on boards. I've served on 3 different economic development boards, including being president of the Valley County Economic Development. I've been on board of 4 different chambers of commerce, and so I'm familiar with some of the things there. One of the board members in Central City who had experience when I joined there said, be aware when you get on this, it's just like painting a big target on your back. So I'm familiar with the criticisms and the things, the input that you get from people, and I'm used to dealing with that. I've also done some consultation with boards of directors and economic development in several communities, Palatine, Burwell, Strasburg, I think I outlined that. And I have experience in public relations and marketing. And having been in business, I have some familiarity with finance. I wouldn't claim to be as good as Gary Garnick with numbers or anything, or somebody else who has more varied experience, but I do have at least a rudimentary knowledge of finances and how that works. And being in business for myself and with the success I've had, you have to know a little bit how finance works. I guess that's all I've got to say now. I guess I'd be open to questions.
I got a question. In your role as a trustee, what are you going to bring to the hospital, and what can you do for the community?
Well, I think there's several things, and my letter addresses some of those. My experience in marketing, public relations, in management consulting, knowing what some of the issues are, understanding the importance of customer service and how that fits in. And I also, I'm very open to input. As I said in my letter, I don't come with an agenda. I don't say, hey, I'm going in and this is what's going to happen. Because I've learned many times with consulting, once you find the inside picture, you change your mind entirely. You go, wait a minute. The preconceived notions I had didn't hold up once I knew the inside story. So I think just the very experience that I have in management and in consulting, I'm able to sift through and see what's going on. Again, my experience being related not directly in healthcare, but having enough outside looking in and knowing some of the issues that are involved there, I am at least familiar with those things.
You feel you have the time to make every meeting?
I think so. We sold a radio station January 1st, and that alleviated me a lot of things. I don't have to worry about some of the government regulation. The radio business is like the banking business. It's probably pretty close in terms of regulation. There's a lot of regulation, and I'm glad to be outside of that part of the picture, and I don't have to do the books, which I had always done the books. So I actually had some time free up, and I think this would be a priority for me. I've been successful in making time to serve on those economic development boards, and I've spent some late nights on occasion. I remember when the first recruiter came in for the ethanol plant, when I was first announced he was coming. I found out some of what is involved in that, and I stayed up late one night putting together all the figures for the preliminary visit. It became a priority. I dropped everything to put together some of those numbers and get the information and kind of get us off on the right foot on that.
Gene, how do you propose to get more people to use the Valley County?
Well, and this was part of what my consulting was with Phil Lowe, which is it starts, good customer service starts inside. You have to treat employees as customers. That's step number 1. You have to treat them right and make them a valuable part of the organization, make them feel like they're valued. If you do that, then they'll value the clients and the customers, and you build that goodwill. And there's some other public relations and marketing things that I think could be done. But I think that's one of the keys, is you've got to start with treating employees well and build the organization from within. If you do things right internally, it's going to reflect externally to the customers.
Thank you.
Yes, I do, and I think when I came to this community, I came, with some goals for what I wanted to see happen in the community, and some of those involved the radio station, building up the economic stuff. One of the things that I gave a speech just after we took over the radio station in March of 2000. I gathered all the employees, and I said, one of our biggest goals is to build up this area economically. I said, if we sell more advertising, that will result in more dollars. And I talked about the pull factor, which there's been a lot of talk about that. If you look at when the pull factor started to grow in Warren, it started in 2000 when we came. It was trending down through 1999, and in 2000 it made a U-turn and started going up. And I talked about that. I said, that's a goal for what we have. The other thing that I noticed, I said, here's a huge asset. It needs to be more regional. That was the goal of the radio station. We need to be more regional. I still think there's some things that can be done in that sense with the hospital. I see a trade area now, and I see that there's encouragement in certain parts of it by other surrounding facilities, more so than I think there should be. And I think that may speak to some of the other internal issues that we've talked about. But I also think there's some marketing things. There's a number of different ways, and it's not one snap your finger. It's not one little magic ingredient. It's a number of different factors, but you need to work on all of those things. And again, I don't say that I can come in if I can name and change everything. I'm not about to say that, but I think that I could be another voice. I'm not afraid to speak up, and I'm also not afraid of criticism. I'm not afraid to have somebody tell me. I always told my employees, and I may have mentioned in my letter, I don't remember, but if you have a problem, come directly to me. And if you don't like what I'm doing, there's one of three things that can happen. One, I'll hear you out and say, yeah, you're right, I need to change something. Number two, you'll hear me out and say, oh, now we understand why he does that. Or number three, we'll continue to disagree, but you will know that I've heard you out.
More questions?
Thank you.
We can take a short break. All right. We're going to take just a short recess until we'll have a schedule. If that's okay with everybody, let's do about 10 minutes. And that, let's go about a quarter till, good, and then we'll reconvene and do there. Next up, thank you.
Never mind, don't worry about it.
I think everybody, if we had your original application, Darcy, if you'd like to add anything to that, please feel free.
Not a whole lot, I just like to think it's done right. And I don't know, we don't have college education, so I'm kind of coming to you as a homeboy. I was born here, raised here, graduated high school. Now I'm back, I'll be 21 years that I've owned and operated DG Automotive. And with my wife, we built that business from my dad and I, and right now I've got 6 full-time employees. I've learned a bit over the years about business, learned an awful lot about people and employees, and my philosophy behind that, I guess, is you got to have the right people doing the right jobs. And that's where I deem, I guess, my success at DG is I just got the right people in the right places. And I think that's vital for any business to excel. What I'm going to bring to the table, that's most of it, I guess, my business experience. I feel I'm a pretty level-headed individual. Not really one I consider to jump on a bandwagon. I need to think things through. I was actually asked to apply for this position. I hadn't really thought. I was asked before I knew about it, I guess. And I was one of the latter ones to apply because I didn't really had to think about it. And feel I would consider it an honor to be put on the board if it so goes that way. I do have a vision for Valley County. in my resume, it states, you know, I truly believe it is probably the most important business for this county. We need that hospital, we need it to be strong. And the one question that keeps coming up is how to get more people there. Well, I don't know right now, but that is vital. That's something that I would give a great amount of thought and concern to, because that's what it means is the majority of this county supporting it, you know, for it to be successful. And I could sit here and say, we need to do this and we need to do that, but if I get on the board, I tell you, I'm going to sit back and listen and learn for quite a long time, because I've got no idea how to run a hospital. But, you know, my first thoughts, we need some, you know, a doctor or some doctors that are here, you know, more than what we have. You know, the Stevens thing always comes up that it's a controversy. I've learned over the years there's certain relationships that just aren't going to work. And I don't know if that's the case with Stevens and Mallet County, but those things happen. There's bridges that get burnt and you just can't fix them. I was involved, Stevens is our family doctor. He's a good doctor. I don't think anybody in here will fight that. But we need the Valley County Health Center as well. My wife got deathly sick here last year. And without Dr. Stevens, without Dr. Cowan, and without the Valley County Health Center, she wouldn't know where to be here right now. And that's important. Everybody that lives here needs someplace to go. I guess that's all I've got to add. I guess the only other thing which is in my resume, one thing I can probably offer that nobody else can, is just my automotive knowledge with the fleet of vehicles the hospital has. I can't help but think that could be favorable. There's an awful lot of dollars in vehicles out there. And I'll just be honest, over the past few years, I've done a lot of work for the hospital, and I've seen some decisions made that I didn't recommend and weren't good decisions, and I feel like I can help with that.
One of the criticisms that every board gets, including our board and probably including the hospital board, when people read the tally of the votes, they say, yeah, everybody votes yes. Are you capable of thinking out of the box if something comes up that you totally disagree, let's say with all the other board members, or?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble standing on my own.
Questions?
Darcy, how do you feel, I've asked this before, so my record's going to start. Confidentiality has a place on every board. How do you feel about confidentiality? How would you handle that?
Absolutely, just seeing different, seeing all the stuff that went on with different things with the hospital and stuff. The gossip is just, it just tears things down, those things, that makes them worse. You have to control. Okay.
We answered a lot of questions that we have on our list, I guess, in the presentation, Darcy. Is there any other questions, Darcy? I certainly appreciate your honesty and openness, and thank you very much for your application. Anybody else? Questions?
And you say you don't lose your temper when a wrench slips.
Not around you, George.
Okay.
Also, you feel you'd have time to attend all these meetings?
Yeah.
Even if they're during the day and all?
To be honest with you, that was the most thing that I had to consider before I applied.